Hey everyone, I know it's been a while. It's also been quite a while since I put out a blog post. I think it's the longest span between posts I've had in the last, I want to say 3 years. But life's been crazy. And each time I go to sit down, when I have a spare minute, I just have all these thoughts going through my head, and it's like this big massive jumble, and I have to figure out, well, which thread do I tug, which one do I share, because it's a lot. So I think my next one will end up being Unpacking this summer. But before I guess I can briefly touch on, yes, Annika went on that month-long trip with her grandparents, and she had an amazing time. It was such a beautiful adventure for her. She got to see parts of the country she didn't even know she'd be able to ever. She saw a lot of family and got to know family that's been so heavy on her heart for the last couple of years. Daniel had his ILR procedure done. That's the heart monitor device that just constantly records everything. So whether we see it happen or not, it's going to catch the data. But then also, if we see something happening, we press a button and it'll mark it on the data, and they'll be able to see exactly what's going on, if it is his heart or if it is seizure related. So that's fantastic news. And then Elijah, we got to see his physical therapist from Spokane. It's been about 3 years since we saw him in person, but that's the one who worked with him from the time he was, I think, before he was a year old until we moved out here to Tacoma. So it's been a while. So lots of amazing things happened this summer. I will say that the downside, our fridge broke just this last week. So it's been kind of a little bit of an adventure. We have been using a cooler to keep what we need for the morning in, but we had friends send us money without, I didn't ask for money. They just sent money to put towards a new fridge, and these are friends that I met through the Plaha Chautauqua. I mention it quite a bit because honestly, it's had a huge impact on my family's life, because that's just a community of people we've had in our corner. But that being said, I wanted to share just how things are going today specifically, because I love the way that God can make all these things work together. And that's what happened today between my Bible study and homeschool, because yes, we have now also gotten back to schooling. Our full days are back in. It took us 3 weeks to get back into that set schedule. So it took 3 weeks to finish 1 week. And now we're in our second all-day, full-day week. And with that, Annika, we're sampling to see if we want to do this for the full year. An extra class for Annika that would give her an English high school credit. So she'd kind of get a little jump. And it's called Mornings with Lewis and Tolkien, and so it's a different, it's a curriculum based on the Chronicles of Narnia, The Hobbit, and The Lord of the Rings. And so for the last few days we've been reading in The Magicians Nephew, and today in one of the Bible studies that I do with the group that I met through the Plaha Chautauqua, we were reading in John 1, and so I'm going to be very brief because I don't want to take up your night. Honestly, I'm tired. Yesterday was day, I can't even keep track of days. Yesterday was day 2 of our, homeschooling this year. And I wasn't done with Annika until, I want to say, 10 o'clock last night. And we got to it at 9 in the morning. But that's, that's homeschooling. Sometimes you have to take a couple hour break because emotions get high, and we got to give each other grace. We're getting back into the swing of this, right? So I want to share just something that was a beautiful way that just kind of clicked things together. So again, I'm going to keep this. So from the Bible study reading this morning, I'm just going to read John 1, 1 through 8. No, actually, I'm not even going that far. Just John 1, 1 through 5. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. So that's that picture of God. That's Jesus speaking life into existence. And I love that. And that's from the New King James Version. I have to look because, but I want to share how that ties in to what I was reading with Annika, The Magicians Nephew by C.S.Lewis. It's a great, fun little book. I think it's at a 4th grade reading level. But you know what? They're good for every age. They're fun. This is from chapter 8. Let's see. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the story, this one is about when Narnia is created, and Diggory, he's the uncle in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, or the professor. I guess maybe he's not the uncle, but in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, if you've seen that, they stay at the professor's house who has the wardrobe. So, yes, I'm giving you spoilers. Sorry. But it sets the stage, okay? So this is before Narnia is created, and Diggory, the professor from the Chronicles of Narnia, he's a little boy in this, and he and his little friend, who's a neighbor, they've gone into this magical world because of his uncle being kind of crazy. They've released Queen Jadis, who you later come to find out is going to be the White Witch. Okay, so they are in this darkness. In the darkness, something was happening at last. A voice had begun to sing. It was very far away, and Diggory found it hard to decide from what direction it was coming. Sometimes it seemed to come from all directions at once. Sometimes he almost thought it was coming out of the earth beneath them. Its lower notes were deep enough to be the voice of the earth herself. There were no words. There was hardly even a tune, but it was, beyond comparison, the most beautiful noise he had ever heard. It was so beautiful he could hardly bear it. The horse seemed to like it too. He gave the sort of whinny a horse would give if, after years of being a cab horse, it found itself back in the old field where it had played as a foal, and saw someone whom it remembered and loved coming across the field to bring it a lump of sugar. A lump of sugar. See, I cannot read. God, said the cabbie, ain't it lovely? I do not have a good British voice, so please do not hold that against me. Then 2 wonders happened at the same moment. One was that the voice was suddenly joined by other voices, more voices than you could possibly count. They were in harmony with it, but far higher up on the scale, cold, tingling, silvery voices. The second wonder was that the blackness overhead all at once was blazing with stars. They didn't come out gently one by one, as they do on a summer evening. One moment there had been nothing but darkness. Next moment, 1,000,000 points of light leaped out. Single stars, constellations and planets, brighter and bigger than any in our world. There were no clouds. The new stars and the new voices began exactly the same time. If you had seen and heard it, as Diggory did, you would have felt quite certain that it was the stars themselves which were singing, and that it was the first voice, the deep one, which had made them appear and made them sing. Glory be, said the cabbie. I'd have been a better man all my life if I'd known there were things like this. The voice on the earth was now louder and more triumphant, but the voices in the sky, after singing loudly with it for a time, began to get fainter. And now something else was happening. Far away and down near the horizon, the sky began to turn gray. A light wind, very fresh, began to stir. The sky in that one place grew slowly and steadily paler. You could see shapes of hills standing up dark against it. All the time the voice went on singing. There was soon light enough for them to see one another's faces. The cabbie and the 2 children had opened mouths and shining eyes. They were drinking in the sound, and they looked as if it reminded them of something. Uncle Andrew's mouth was open too, but not open with joy. He looked more as if his chin had simply dropped away from the rest of his face. His shoulders were stooped and his knees shook. He was not liking the voice. If he could have got away from it creeping into a rat's hole, he would have done so. But the witch looked as if, in a way, she understood the music better than any of them. Her mouth was shut, her lips were pressed together, and her fists were clenched. Ever since the song began, she had felt that this whole world was filled with a magic different from hers and stronger. She hated it. She would have smashed the whole world, or all worlds, to pieces if it would only stop the singing. The horse stood with its ears well forward and twitching. Every now and then it snorted and stamped the ground. It no longer looked like a tired old cab horse. You could now well believe that its father had been in battles. The eastern sky changed from white to pink, and from pink to gold. The voice rose and rose till all the air was shaking with it, and just as it swelled to the mightiest and most glorious sound it had yet produced, the sun arose. Diggory had never seen such a sun. The sun above the ruins of Charn had looked older than ours. This looked younger. You could imagine that it laughed for joy as it came up. And as its beams shot across the land, the travelers could see for the first time what sort of place they were in. It was a valley through which a broad, swift river wound its way, flowing eastward toward the sun. Southward there were mountains. Northward there were lower hills. But it was a valley of mere earth, rock, and water. There was not a tree, not a bush, not a blade of grass to be seen. The earth was of many colors. They were fresh, hot, and vivid. They made you feel excited until you saw the singer himself. And then you forgot everything else. It was a lion, huge, shaggy, and bright. It stood facing the risen sun. Its mouth was wide open in song, and it was about 300 yards away. "This is a terrible world," said the witch. "We must fly at once. Prepare the magic." "I quite agree with you, madam," said Uncle Andrew. "A most disagreeable place, completely uncivilized. If only I were a younger man and had a gun." "Garn," said the cabby. "You don't think you could shoot him, do you?" "And who would?" said Polly. "Prepare the magic, old fool," said Jadis. "Certainly, madam," and Uncle Andrew cunningly. "I must have both the children touching me. Put on your homeward ring at once, Diggory." He wanted to get away without the witch. "Oh, it's rings, is it?" cried Jadis. She would have had her hands in Diggory's pocket before you could say knife, but Diggory grabbed Polly and shouted out, "Take care. If either of you come half an inch nearer, we two will vanish and you'll be left here for good." "Yes, I have a ring in my pocket. That will take Polly and me home. And look, my hand is just ready, so keep your distance. I'm sorry about you," he looked at the cabby, "and about the horse, but I can't help that. As for you two," he looked at Uncle Andrew and the Queen, "you're both magicians, so you ought to enjoy living together." "Hold your noise, everyone," said the cabby. "I want to listen to the music." But the song had now changed. The lion was pacing to and fro that empty land and singing his new song. I'll stop there, but that's that picture, right? The lion, that's Jesus. It's his breath holding everything into being, causing it all to be. And I just love the way C.S.Lewis puts that into perspective. Can you imagine having been there? All those stars bursting forth at once. I love the imagery. But that's that same creator, right? That came to be light in the darkness. And he calls us into the relationship with him. And the last thing I didn't mention that I did this summer was it was the weekend before this last one. I got to go with a group of women from one of the churches that, we call family, for a women's retreat. And while there, we did, our focus was prayer. And one of the last things that we talked about in prayer was sitting in silence with God. And Psalms 46:10. So actually Psalm 46:10. It's not Psalms. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. So here's my question for you. When was the last time you were just still and knew that he was God? For me, like I said, it's been busy. It's been chaos. I've been tired. I'm amazed I'm still awake right now. But that was so needed for me to just remember I don't have to always be go, 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 busy, busy, busy. I can just be still and know that he's God. So if the rest of you are getting kids off to school and you're getting back into work, if you're in the teaching field or anything like that, don't forget to just be still. Be still and know he's God. Okay, you guys have a great week, and thanks for having story time with me.